Night descends slowly over the medieval town, not as a sudden darkness, but as a settling presence, like ash drifting down after a distant fire. The sky bruises into shades of deep blue and soot black, and the final light of day clings to the edges of rooftops before surrendering. Smoke rises from hearths and hangs low, trapped beneath the clouds, carry with it the mingled smells of burning peat, salted meat, and old wood soaked through with centuries of living. The air is damp, heavy, and familiar. This is the hour when doors are barred, candles lit, and the world narrows to what can be seen within a single room. Bells begin to toll from the church tower, their iron voices slow and deliberate. Compline, the sound travels across stone and mud alike, passing through open shutters, slipping into homes without invitation. No one startles at it. The bells have always spoken at this hour. They mark not danger, but surrender, the laying down of labor, the turning inward of thought. Each strike reminds the living that the day is ended, and that night, with all its closeness to death, has returned once more. Inside the houses, families prepare for sleep in rooms that serve every purpose a life requires. The same space that holds meals and arguments, births and prayers, also holds dying. Straw mattresses are shaken and laid near the hearth, close enough to feel its fading warmth. Cloaks are folded carefully, boots set by the door, rosaries hung on pegs driven deep into beams darkened by smoke. The walls breathe cold, seeping it slowly into bones. Silence is never complete. Somewhere, a baby stirs. Somewhere else, an old man coughs, the sound wet and hollow, rattling as though something loose inside him has begun to break apart. No one rushes to his side. Not yet. That sound has been part of the night for many weeks now. It has become as ordinary as the creak of the timbers or the scurry of mice beneath the floor. In this world, illness announces itself gradually, politely, giving the living time to grow accustomed to the idea of losing someone. Death rarely arrives as a thief. More often, it settles in like an unwanted guest, pulling up a stool, staying long enough to be recognized. Children fall asleep listening to these sounds. The rhythm of failing breath becomes a lullaby, woven unconsciously into dreams. They do not recoil from it. They have heard it before, and they will hear it again. By the age when they learn their prayers, they also learn a language of decline, the gray tint that creeps into skin, the way eyes grow glassy, the smell that begins to cling to a body no matter how often it is washed. These lessons are not spoken aloud. They are absorbed quietly, the way one absorbs cold in winter. When death finally comes, it does not demand ceremony at first. It announces itself softly in the stillness between breaths. A woman pauses while stirring a pot. A child looks up from the floor. Someone says the name of the dead person once, gently, as though they might still answer. Hands are placed on the chest. A mirror may be held to the lips. When there is no fog, no warmth, no movement, a small nod passes between those present. It has happened. The body remains where it is. There is no other place for it to go. Coins are fetched from a pouch and pressed onto the eyelids, their cold weight holding the eyes closed against whatever they might still see. The jaw is tied with a strip of linen to keep the mouth from falling open in its final surrender. The skin is washed with warm water drawn from the same pot that will soon be used again for cooking. Vinegar may be added, its sharp scent cutting through the sweetness that has already begun to gather in the air. The gestures are careful, practiced. No one rushes. This is not their first time. The dead are laid out on planks or a trestle table, sometimes the very surface where bread was kneaded that morning. A clean cloth is drawn over the body, though the shape beneath remains unmistakable. Candles are placed nearby, their flames thin and wavering. The body will stay here. For a day, for two, sometimes longer. The ground is frozen or the priest delayed. Life reorganizes itself around this presence. People step carefully. Children are warned not to touch, though they often do anyway. Curious fingers brushing fabric or skin, learning through contact what words cannot teach. The dead are not hidden. There is no sense that they should be. To remove them too quickly would feel wrong, like erasing something sacred before it is finished speaking. Death requires witnessing. It requires time. Even as the body cools, the household continues its routines. Bread is baked. Ale is poured. Neighbors come and go, murmuring prayers, sharing news, asking after crops and weather. The corpse listens silently to everything it once belonged to. The boundary between presence and absence grows thin, almost meaningless. The living do not fear this closeness. They have grown up with it. It is the way the world has always been shaped. Disease moves easily through these spaces. It rides on breath and touch, on shared cups and unwashed hands. A fever passed from mother to child is not considered betrayal, but fate. People speak of sickness as something written by God, letters pressed into flesh. To fall ill is not always seen as misfortune. Sometimes it is interpreted as correction or trial or reminder. Priests speak of humors out of balance, of sins that weigh down the body. Barley water is brewed. Herbs are crushed. Leeches wait patiently in clay jars, their dark bodies coiled and ready. Pain is endured openly. There is little effort to hide it. A woman groans in labor, within earshot of the entire household. A man shivers through fever on a pallet near the fire, his sweat soaking the straw. Children watch, absorbing these images the way others might absorb stories. Suffering is not private here. It belongs to everyone. The smells of illness become familiar companions: sour sweat, infected wounds, the metallic tang of blood. Vinegar and rosemary are used to cleanse the air, though their effectiveness is uncertain. What matters more is the act itself, the feeling of doing something against the inevitable. Even so, most people understand that control is limited. Survival is a negotiation, not a guarantee. As night deepens, the household settles again into stillness. Candles burn lower, leaving trails of smoke that curl upward and stain the ceiling black. Shadows gather in corners, pooling around furniture and bodies alike. The dead lie motionless, indistinguishable now from sleep except for the absence of breath. Someone keeps watch, fingers wrapped around a rosary worn smooth by generations. Prayers are whispered not only for the departed, but for those who remain, for strength, for mercy, for another morning. Sleep comes slowly. It is not an escape, but a rehearsal. Each night carries the possibility that someone will not wake again. This knowledge presses gently but constantly against the mind. Dreams are filled with bells, with dark water, with doors that open onto silence. And yet people sleep. They must. To refuse rest would be to hasten the very thing they fear. Morning, when it comes, arrives quietly. Light seeps through shutters, pale and unsure. A rooster crows somewhere beyond the walls. If the household wakes to find everyone still breathing, there is a subtle relief never spoken aloud. Gratitude is shown through habit rather than celebration. Another day has been granted. Work resumes. The dead will soon be carried out, borne on shoulders through streets that have seen this procession countless times before. In this world, death is not a stranger. It eats at the same table, sleeps beneath the same roof, breathes the same air. Its constant presence does not numb the living. It shapes them. It teaches patience, endurance, and a quiet reverence for each ordinary moment. The medieval night closes around the town once more, and within it, the living and the dead rest side by side, bound together by acceptance, waiting for the bells to speak again. Dawn rises slowly over the town, pale as a ghost, brushing the stone walls with light that feels fragile and hesitant. Moss clings to the edges of roofs, and the damp of early morning settles into the cracks between cobblestones, carrying the lingering chill of night. From a high gallows at the edge of the square, ropes sway slightly in the wind, stiff and darkened by rain and repeated use. Ravens perch on the crossbeam, their black feathers absorbing the first light, their eyes keen and unblinking, as though they understand the place they occupy better than any human. Below, the town awakens, and yet the sight of the gallows does not startle or outrage. It is as ordinary as the market itself, a structure integrated into life like the stone walls that keep out the wind or the well that provides water. Merchants begin setting up their stalls. Coarse bread is stacked carefully in baskets, onions and salted fish arranged to catch the eye, and jugs of ale wait for early customers. A child tugs at his mother's sleeve, eager to buy a piece of bread, only to be pulled toward a path that passes directly beneath the ropes above. He glances up at the dangling feet, pale and stiff, and notices the hollow eyes staring back at the sky. There is no scream, no sudden tear of horror. The child only tilts his head, curious in a quiet, accepting way, as if this scene has always belonged to the square. The merchants continue their work, speaking in low tones about the weather, the harvest, and the price of grain, their words flowing around the macabre fixture above without pause. In the town, justice is never abstract. It does not live only in law books or the voices of distant lords. Here, it is visible, heavy, and unyielding. The gallows teaches lessons in permanence and mortality. The executed are left to hang, their bodies stiffening in the cold, their decay progressing with a slow, deliberate rhythm. Summer brings a certain sweetness to the rot, a fragrance carried by the wind that mingles unexpectedly with the scent of fresh bread and smoke from hearths. People do not flinch. They learn instead to breathe around it, to carry on, to acknowledge death as part of the same world as life. Parents instruct children without sentimentality. Do not touch, do not mock, observe and learn. This is the law, and law is the foundation of all things. Fear is understood, certainly, but it is tempered by repetition. Death is a teacher that visits often, and the more it is encountered, the more ordinary it becomes. The bodies, once human, and now lessons in impermanence, sway gently, releasing a rhythmic creak that blends with the crowing of roosters and the shuffling of early laborers. The townspeople pass beneath with careful steps, heads bowed, eyes accustomed to the spectacle. A man carrying milk from the barn does not avert his gaze. He has seen this before. He knows from memory and habit the look of a body cooling in air and sunlight. The execution is a communal event, but it is not entertainment. No one laughs. No one shouts. It is ritual and warning in equal measure. Those who once condemned the accused and those who witness their passing carry with them a sense of solemnity that mingles with the day's chores. The rope does not discriminate. It is impartial in its teaching. The crowd absorbs silently the lessons it delivers. Life is fleeting, obedience is demanded, and every choice carries weight. Priests often move among the crowd, murmuring prayers for the departed soul, their hands extended over faces streaked with tears or soot, over eyes dry and watchful. Incense may be burned at the base of the gallows, its smoke rising lazily, twisting around the ropes and feathers of the ravens. The ritual is not meant to comfort the living alone. It is meant to honor the transition, to mark the passage with the solemnity of faith. There is no rush, no distraction. The ritual teaches patience, endurance, and awareness that life is held lightly in the palm of the divine. The smell of decay is sharp in the summer months, yet it is accepted, even expected. Herbs and vinegar may be carried in pouches, pressing noses to dull the edge, but they do not hide it entirely. No one seeks to escape this knowledge. Instead, they integrate it into the rhythm of their existence. The mind learns to sort the layers of smell: smoke from hearths, mud and river water, bread baking, and the underlying scent of bodies left too long in the sun. Life and death blend, inseparable, forming a tapestry of experience that binds the town together. This visibility of mortality does more than teach obedience. It teaches impermanence, and with it, resilience. A man walking to the mill may pass the dangling corpse of someone he knew yesterday, or perhaps a stranger whose crimes or debts were unknown. The lesson is the same. Flesh is fragile, time is fleeting, and attention must be paid to each moment, each choice. Clothes stiffen, skin darkens, fingers curl and harden. The body speaks long after the voice has fallen silent. Children learn early that survival is provisional, and that life itself is both gift and trial. The gallows is a silent tutor, patient, persistent, and unflinching. In the homes surrounding the square, windows open to catch the morning light, and the distant sound of ropes creaking. Families speak in hushed tones, careful not to startle each other with sudden laughter or breathless excitement. Food is prepared, chores attended, prayers whispered. Life continues around death not out of disrespect, but because life is all that remains. There's a rhythm to it, a cadence that requires recognition and acceptance of the inevitable. The gallows, in this sense, is part of the household, part of the town's breath, a presence that shapes thought, habit, and story alike. Even the animals know. Dogs linger at corners, watching the swaying forms with a wary calm, as if understanding the boundaries of life and law. Birds, beyond the ravens, flutter and call, adjusting their flight paths around the human spectacle below. Nature, in its way, bends to the ritual of mortality, acknowledging the passage with quiet compliance. Every crow, every rustle of leaves, every subtle creak of rope in the wind contributes to the lesson. Nothing in this world is extraneous. Everything is noticed, absorbed, recorded in memory and muscle. The square remains active throughout the day. Tradesmen, servants, and laborers move through it, carrying goods and messages, offering prayers, speaking in soft tones to the dead and living alike. The gallows is never ignored. It is a constant, silent witness to the patterns of daily life. The community learns to navigate around it, to breathe around it, to live in coexistence with its message. To turn away entirely would be folly, as if denying the law itself, or denying the inevitable truth written in human flesh. As evening approaches, the light shifts once more. Shadows grow longer, stretching across the cobblestones like dark fingers. The bodies hanging in the sun become silhouettes against the fading glow, their contours sharp, almost surreal. The town slows. Work is finished. Fires are lit, and windows are shuttered against the coming cold. The gallows casts its final shadow across the square before darkness takes it entirely. The sight is no longer shocking. It is, as it has always been, a reminder, a teacher, and a witness to the fragile existence of all who live within the town's walls. Night falls fully. Candles are lit in homes and chapels. The smell of smoke rises again, mingling with the lingering scent of decay and the sweet tang of herbs burned in wards. Families gather close to the hearth, speaking softly, tending to children, recalling the events of the day. Some will speak of the bodies they passed, of the lesson learned without words, of the reality that death waits for no one and spares no station. These are stories not meant to frighten, but to instill awareness, humility, and a measure of readiness for the brevity of life. Sleep comes reluctantly, in patches and stages. The sound of the gallows swaying in the wind outside may intrude on dreams, or the call of the morning's ravens may echo into night thoughts. Yet in this world, sleep is not avoidance. It is acknowledgement. Each night is a rehearsal of endurance, each dream a quiet preparation for the inevitable. Those who awaken find themselves grateful, aware that life persists, though precarious and fragile, for another day. Through this constant rhythm of witnessing and enduring, the medieval town has carved out a delicate equilibrium. Death is neither stranger nor enemy. It is patient, impartial, and omnipresent. The gallows, the decaying bodies, the lessons passed to children, all these form the backbone of communal existence. Fear is tempered by repetition. Shock is softened into acceptance. Horror becomes part of ordinary consciousness. The town breathes in tandem with mortality, learning that to live fully requires knowing fragility of life intimately, and without denial. As the next day dawns, pale and fragile once more, the gallows stand waiting, the ropes swaying gently, silent yet insistent. Ravens return to their perches. The square will awaken, merchants will speak, children will pass beneath, and the cycle continues. Life and death cohabit the same space, inseparable. The people of the town do not call this cruel. They call it ordinary. And in this acceptance, they find a grim wisdom, a measured steadiness, and a rhythm of life intertwined forever with the shadow of mortality. The chamber is dim, lit only by the flickering glow of beeswax candles, their smoke curling upward in lazy spirals, staining the low, timbered ceiling with transient shadows. The air is thick with scents layered like memories. Damp wool, the earthy tang of clay floors, the metallic bite of iron instruments laid out on a small wooden table, and the faint sweetness of herbs crushed in mortars. A barber surgeon kneels beside a patient, who lies pale and still upon a table that was meant for feasts. The boards beneath the body creak faintly under the weight, their history folded into centuries of daily labor, celebrations, and quiet tragedies. There is no soft padding beneath the feet here, no comforting linens beyond a thin cloth over the patient's chest. The world beyond the walls has already begun its mourning. Here, time is suspended, held by ritual and necessity. The tools on the table are simple yet forbidding. Knives with worn handles, their steel darkened by repeated use, sit alongside a small bone saw with teeth dull from countless amputations. Bowls of water glint faintly in the candlelight, waiting to catch blood, pus, or whatever might be released from the body today. There is no pretense of comfort, no anesthetic to soften the edges of pain. The surgeon works with a quiet, deliberate precision, honed through decades of witnessing suffering and survival. Each cut, each incision, is a negotiation between skill, faith, and chance. The patient's body is a landscape to be read and corrected, not merely a vessel of life, but a testament to endurance. Pain is anticipated, accepted, and endured. A leather strap is pressed across the teeth of a patient who grits them in silent resolve. The smell of iron begins to mix with sweat, with herbs, with fear and resignation alike. This is a language of the body. It communicates through color, texture, and heat, signaling imbalance, illness, or injury. The surgeon reads these signs like a priest interpreting scripture, seeking the pattern beneath the chaos. Even as the blade moves, there is reverence, a recognition that the flesh is fragile, that life is precarious, and that every action leaves a permanent mark. Blood spills onto rushes scattered across the floor, darkening them to nearly black, soaking into fibers that have absorbed countless previous rituals of care and injury. The patient cries out, not in hysteria, but as part of the rhythm of suffering, a sound that resonates with all who have been present for such moments. In the corners of the room, apprentices or family members may stand silently, watching, learning. They do not flinch. They've been taught that this is ordinary, that survival often requires enduring what seems unbearable. The mind begins to separate pain from terror, understanding it as a necessary step toward continued life. Amputation is not uncommon in this chamber. Gangrene injury and infection demand swift, decisive action. The bone saw is lifted with both reverence and urgency, its teeth gnashing against hardened bone. A young apprentice grips the patient's arm, holding it steady as the surgeon works, murmuring words of encouragement or instruction. The smell of burned flesh sometimes mingles with the earthy aroma of herbs applied to wounds, creating a sensory tapestry that imprints itself onto memory. Pain is acute, immediate, yet the ritual surrounding it offers a framework for endurance. No one panics. No one screams beyond the natural cries of agony. The world has taught them that panic is wasted energy. Illness in this time is interpreted through balance and excess. Too much heat, too much cold, too much humor, or too much sin. Any can disturb the body's equilibrium. The surgeon moves deliberately through these beliefs, balancing what he knows of flesh with what the community knows of faith. Leeches cling lazily to skin, drawing blood to correct imbalance. Poultices of herbs are pressed onto swollen joints or festering wounds. The patient lies in stillness, breathing unevenly, while these interventions proceed. To the untrained eye, these actions may seem barbaric, but within the walls of this chamber, they are ordinary acts of devotion and hope. Observers of this ritual learn early that life is delicate. Children or apprentices watch closely. Fingers press the lips, eyes wide but unflinching. They memorize the cadence of the procedure, the smells, the sounds, the tension in every movement. They learn that survival is not guaranteed, that bodies are fragile, that pain can be endured and witnessed without panic. The chamber is a classroom, the surgeon a guide, and the patient both pupil and teacher. Yet what is most unsettling is not the violence itself, but the calm acceptance surrounding it. Meals may resume on tables nearby, even as blood seeps slowly from the patient onto boards meant for celebration. The hearth continues to glow with warmth, and pots of stew bubble gently, their aroma mingling with the metallic tang of instruments and the sharp scent of vinegar applied to the skin. The living continue their lives around the wounded, stepping carefully over bloodstains as they dry, attending to chores and prayer alike. Life flows on with quiet dignity, the presence of suffering seamlessly integrated into the rhythm of existence. The surgeon moves like a careful dancer, each gesture precise, deliberate, rehearsed. Hands washed between actions, dipped into bowls of water scented with herbs, ensuring a semblance of cleanliness in a world without sterilization. Every incision, every cut, every cauterization carries both immediate consequence and long-term memory. The patient may lie in silence, murmuring prayers, or perhaps simply holding the breath between agonies. Faith is as much a salve as the herbal poultice. The whispered psalm is necessary as the iron blade. The body and the soul are treated simultaneously, for both are fragile and intertwined. As the procedure concludes, the room settles into a tentative calm. The patient is clean, bound, and covered, wounds dressed with salves and linens. The air remains heavy with the memory of pain, the sharp tang of blood, and the lingering scent of herbs burned to protect against infection. Yet there is also relief, a fragile, cautious hope. Life has been preserved, though scarred. Endurance has been witnessed. Survival remains provisional, and every breath is a victory. The chamber empties gradually, leaving only the patient, the surgeon, and a few silent witnesses. Candlelight continues to flicker against the walls, casting long, wavering shadows. The smells of wax, iron, and herbs linger, mingling with the faint scent of fear and determination. Night presses against the windows, carrying the distant sound of wind, dogs, and the faint murmur of prayers from chapels nearby. The patient lies awake, listening, thinking, and perhaps already learning to live with the marks left by necessity and endurance. In this world, suffering is communal and deeply understood. Pain is not hidden. It is shared, observed, endured, and remembered. The living learn to negotiate it, to accept its rhythms, to integrate its lessons into the fabric of daily life. Children grow up knowing the edges of mortality. Apprentices absorb the weight of responsibility, and families witness each act with quiet understanding. The chamber becomes a sacred space, where life and death converge in ritualized precision, where endurance is both an expectation and a virtue. As night deepens, the chamber grows silent. The candles burn lower and smoke curls into dark corners, leaving shadows that seem to move with life of their own. The patient rests, breath uneven but steady, while the surgeon cleans his instruments and murmurs prayers for protection and continued strength. The lessons of pain, endurance, and survival are embedded into the very air, into the walls themselves, into the rhythm of the house. Life is continued, fractured and repaired, delicate and precious. Morning will come again, bringing new patients, new challenges, new tests of courage and skill. Yet in this sacred space, the memory of pain and endurance remains. It informs every gesture, every breath, every careful touch. The room carries the weight of generations who have lain on this table, endured this work, and survived. The chamber itself becomes a silent witness, holding the echoes of agony, the sighs of relief, and the quiet dignity of lives preserved in the midst of suffering. In the medieval world, this is ordinary. The extraordinary is the ability to endure, to witness, and to continue. The barber-surgeon is both artisan and priest. The body is both patient and teacher, and the community bears witness with reverent, unflinching eyes. Pain is neither hidden nor feared. It is a companion, a guide, a measure of what it means to live and survive. The world continues outside, but within these walls, life and death are intimately entwined, inseparable, and eternally instructive. The first pale light of dawn brushes the frost-flecked windows of a narrow chamber, spreading fragile patterns across the glass like fragile lace. Outside, the town is quiet, its streets still dark and silent, save for the occasional crowing of roosters or the soft scuffle of animals stirring in their stalls. Within the house, a young girl awakens, her breath forming small clouds that rise and vanish in the cold morning air. Today, her life will change. She knows this with a certainty that feels heavier than her small body can carry. She has been prepared in ways both subtle and firm, yet the reality of what awaits is something no one can soften entirely. Her body is no longer entirely her own. From the moment she was born, she has been a vessel of duty, a keeper of lineage, a tool for alliances forged between families whose names are older than she is. The women of the household have instructed her quietly over years, teaching her how to move, how to speak, how to fold her hands correctly. These lessons are delivered not as advice, but as imperatives, as matters of life and survival. Fear is acknowledged but not indulged. It is considered weakness. She has been told that endurance is virtue, that silence is grace, and that duty demands submission. Her mother, standing near the hearth, adjusts the folds of her cloak and brushes down the coarse wool of her daughter's dress. The air smells of smoke and baking bread, of cold stone and warming fire, yet there's an underlying sharpness. The scent of iron tools kept nearby for reasons no one speaks of directly. The girl moves carefully, aware of every gesture, every step, every breath. Her life has been rehearsed in this way for many years. Yet rehearsal cannot replicate the reality of what it means to leave girlhood behind. Today is a crossing, a passage that will mark her body and soul forever. In the rooms beyond, men speak in low voices about matters she is forbidden to hear. Alliances, dowries, land, and titles are discussed as though she is a table or vessel, not a living person. She listens in the corridor, small eyes wide, absorbing every word she is allowed to and learning the unspoken rules. Her voice matters less than her obedience. Her presence matters less than her absence. Her wishes are immaterial. Every gesture, every smile, every careful nod she has practiced is meant to prepare her for this moment. Yet nothing can soften the terror tucked quietly beneath the excitement, beneath the expectation. Pain is anticipated and normalized in this world. Blood on sheets is not tragedy, but proof of duty fulfilled. The women of her household have shown her the ritual preparation, the way linens are laid. Herbs are burned to ease discomfort, and prayers are whispered for safety. They have taught her the quiet acceptance required of labor and childbirth, of marriage and allegiance. Death hovers always at the edges of life, especially for women, who are expected to endure, submit, and continue the line. Even childbirth, with its high likelihood of danger, is framed not as horror, but as expectation. Girls are taught that fear is acceptable only in private, and that endurance is sacred. The bride is dressed in a robe of muted color, simple in design yet rich with meaning. Every stitch, every fold, has significance. The veil placed upon her head is rough against her hair, the coarse fibers biting slightly into her skin, a reminder that comfort is secondary to ritual. Her hands are folded as she has been taught, her head bowed, her eyes downcast. Each step she takes toward the threshold is measured, deliberate, guided by lessons repeated hundreds of times in mirrors and corridors. Every moment is a test of obedience and preparation, of inner strength and outward composure. Her companions, women who have themselves survived the same crossing, guide her quietly. Midwives, aunts, and elder sisters move with gentle authority, their hands on her shoulders or her elbows, steadying her as she walks. Their eyes are calm, practiced, reflecting a lifetime of knowing both the dangers and expectations of life. They murmur prayers, words meant to fortify her courage and spirit. The young bride is both shielded and exposed, carried forward by the weight of tradition, the collective knowledge of women who have passed through these same thresholds before her. Outside, the world continues with its indifferent rhythms. Carts creak over cobblestones, animals stir in stalls, and the wind whistles through narrow alleys. The day itself does not pause for fear or for ritual. It bends only slightly, accommodating the solemnity of human passage. The town recognizes her crossing not with celebration, but with quiet acknowledgement. Eyes glance, murmurs rise briefly, then vanish into the larger rhythm of daily life. No one needs to shout, for everyone knows the significance. This is ordinary here, as ordinary as bread rise in the oven or firelight warming stone walls. The marriage is a transfer, not a union. She is exchange-bound and offered as part of a contract older than she is, part of a network of allegiances, wealth, and duty. Her consent is irrelevant. Her obedience is paramount. Every tradition she has learned, every lesson in patience and endurance, prepares her for this. She knows that submission will be demanded. She has been trained to accept, to endure, to fold herself into the shape required of her. Fear and resistance are luxuries she cannot afford. Duty closes around her like a door, and there is no key. Even the physical pain of the day is anticipated. Menstruation, labor, and childbirth are considered natural, but also tests of endurance. Blood and sweat mark the transition from girlhood to adulthood, from autonomy to responsibility. She carries the knowledge of these expectations quietly, internalizing them, transforming fear into a disciplined calm. Every sensation, the chill of early morning, the rough touch of wool, the pressure hands guiding her, is a lesson in endurance and obedience. Her steps bring her to the threshold of the ceremonial space, where the ritual will conclude and her new life begin. Bells toll faintly in the distance, their sound mingling with a low murmur of wind and the soft rustle of fabric. The veil slips slightly over her face, and she inhales the scent of candle wax, cold stone, and the lingering warmth of hearths left behind. Her heart beats unevenly, a rhythm mirrored by the flickering candlelight. Yet she moves forward without hesitation. Every motion has been rehearsed. Yet each step carries the weight of reality, of a passage that will leave its mark on her body and spirit forever. Once within the ceremonial space, her position is fixed. She bows, kneels, and moves according to the ritual she has memorized, gestures guided by duty, instruction, and expectation. The men who claim authority over her speak in measured tones, their words forming invisible chains that dictate not only her present but the shape of her future. She listens, responds with quiet obedience, and internalizes every detail. Even within this rigid structure, she is alert, aware, absorbing the lessons of power, submission, and survival. The ritual is both literal and symbolic, a passing from one life to another, from freedom to expectation, from girlhood to adult responsibility. Outside, the day carries on with its ordinary rhythms. The townspeople move along streets that are narrow and familiar, passing the scene without the need for spectacle. Life and duty intertwine invisibly, each person carrying their own burdens and participating in a collective pattern of expectation. Children run past, oblivious to the ceremony's gravity, yet their own futures are already shaped by similar lessons. Women return to household tasks, men to trade, priests to prayer. Everything continues, yet the ritual has left an indelible mark, both on the young bride and on the household that prepared her. As the ritual concludes, she rises, veil adjusted, hands folded, heart steady despite the undercurrent of fear that has never truly left her. She steps forward into her new life, aware that every glance, every word, every gesture will now be measured against expectation. The physical and spiritual lessons of endurance have been applied, the rituals have been observed, and yet the weight of her new existence presses heavily upon her. She is both smaller and larger than before, smaller in autonomy, larger in responsibility. The house closes around her memory, echoing with the footsteps of generations who have passed through similar rites. Frost glitters faintly on the windows, sunlight touching each edge in delicate patterns. The air smells faintly of smoke, bread, and iron. Outside, the town breathes quietly, recognizing the passage of duty, the unfolding of life according to rules older than any single person. Fear is folded into habit. Endurance is measured in action. Submission is sanctified by ritual. The young girl has crossed the threshold, and life has adjusted to accommodate her new place within it. The day moves on, indifferent yet acknowledging, and the girl, now a woman in all but name, steps into a world where obedience and duty govern the measure of existence. She has been prepared, yet preparation does not erase the weight of reality. Every breath, every gesture, every quiet decision will now echo the lessons of the morning, the teachings of women who have survived, and the indelible knowledge that life is fragile, fear is constant, and duty is sacred. Her journey has begun, and it will continue until the end of her days. The monastery infirmary awakens slowly to the muted light of dawn, filtered through narrow, arched windows that cast long, pale beams across the cold stone floor. Silence dominates, though it is not absolute. It is punctuated by the occasional cough, the shuffle of worn sandals across flagstones, and the low, rhythmic murmur of monks reciting prayers. The air is thick, a heavy mixture of incense burned for protection, and the unmistakable tang of sickness that clings to the walls and fills every corner. This is a place where life and death intertwine so closely that it becomes impossible to distinguish one from the other, and yet the rhythm of existence continues, measured, deliberate, and inevitable. Rows of beds, simple and unadorned, whole bodies ravaged by fever's plague, or the lingering effects of malnutrition. Each bed is a small stage, a testament to endurance, suffering, and the fragile perseverance of the human form. Sheets are linen, coarse and rough, and rushes cover the floor beneath them, darkened from long use. The bodies within these beds are reduced to shadows of themselves, gaunt faces, sunken eyes, and skin that gleams with sweat and disease. The smell is overwhelming, a pungent combination of rot, decay, and the herbal concoctions applied in desperate attempts to stave off death. Yet those who inhabit this space, the monks, the nurses, the few family members allowed to remain, move calmly, deliberately, as if navigating through fog. Each breath is measured. Each step is cautious. Contagion is understood poorly, yet proximity is unavoidable. The infirmary cannot be avoided, for sickness arrives quickly and unpredictably. The sick are not separated from one another with the care a modern mind might expect. Rather, they are tended collectively. Monks move from bed to bed, hands raw and scrub with water only sporadically, applying compresses and prayers with equal diligence. There is no fear expressed openly, though the quiet tension that underlies every motion betrays the awareness that death could strike anyone in an instant. To flee from the infirmary would not only be cowardice, but sin. Here, courage is measured not in acts of heroism, but in the patient endurance of proximity to suffering. Monks perform their duties with a solemn grace. They touch foreheads slick with sweat, wipe tears from hollow cheeks, and whisper last rites over those whose breasts are growing shallow. Their faces are composed, betraying neither shock nor sorrow, for these experiences are so common that they have become ritualized. Hands that minister to the sick are the same hands that bless bread, that lift candles, that turn pages of sacred texts. Every gesture is deliberate, guided by centuries of practice and devotion. Even in the face of overwhelming mortality, the monk's composure provides a fragile anchor, a reminder that faith can coexist with despair. Outside the walls, mass graves wait patiently. Grave diggers, their faces as unreadable as carved stone, work methodically, lowering bodies in the earth with the efficiency of those accustomed to relentless loss. Each body is layered carefully, lime sprinkled over to hasten decomposition and prevent the spread of disease. Families watch silently, neither screaming nor fainting, their grief tempered by familiarity. Loss on this scale has become background noise to existence. Entire households vanish in a season, and the world adjusts, moving on with deliberate precision. Mourning is private, internal, yet acknowledged collectively through ritual, prayer, and the silent understanding that life is provisional. Suffering in the infirmary is constant, yet it is not chaotic. There is structure, imposed both by habit and by the religious order that governs the space. Food is brought at regular intervals. Gruel, bread, thin ale, and the occasional broth thickened with herbs. Water is applied to parched lips. Linen is replaced as necessary. Even in the midst of despair, there is rhythm, a cadence that organizes chaos into something comprehensible. Life and death exist side by side, each informing the other. Every cough, every shiver, every whispered prayer is a reminder of this delicate balance. The sick learn, consciously or unconsciously, the limits of the body. They feel the slow weakening of muscles, the heat and chill that alternate unpredictably, the strange hollowing of cheeks and eyes as illness progresses. Pain is endured openly, observed by monks and fellow sufferers alike. In this environment, fear is acknowledged but transformed. Panic is unnecessary because death is so constant that it has been woven into daily awareness. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. The anomaly becomes pattern. In such circumstances, survival is not a certainty, but fragile, provisional gift, recognized and celebrated in quiet, understated ways. The infirmary also becomes a space of transformation. Those who survive learn to navigate the thin line between vitality and collapse, integrating suffering into the rhythms of life. They observe the inevitability of loss, absorbing the lessons imparted by the weak and the dying. They learn humility, patience, and a measured endurance that is both practical and spiritual. Every gesture, every act of care, every moment of observation contributes to the slow education in fragility and resilience of the human condition. Death in this space is intimate. It is witnessed closely, often without ceremony. A monk may hold the hand of a dying brother, whispering prayers to accompany the soul. Family members may press coins to eyes, tie jaws with linen, or apply fragrant oils to mask the smell of decay. Even as the body cools and stiffens, it remains part of the household, part of the fabric of daily life. The living move carefully around it, their routines adjusting to accommodate the departed. Loss is absorbed as silently and respectfully as possible, a constant undercurrent beneath ordinary activity. The smell of the infirmary changes slowly with the passing of each day. Rot and decay mingle with the fragrance of burned herbs, of vinegar applied to prevent contagion, of soiled linens washed in frigid water. This combination becomes familiar, almost comforting in its constancy. Monks and attendants breathe it without pause, integrating it into the rhythm of care. Even newcomers learn quickly. Fear is not extinguished, but tempered by knowledge and repetition. The air itself is a teacher, and those who live within it emerge with a heightened awareness of mortality and a quiet resilience born of exposure. Even as night falls, the work continues. Candles are lit, their flames small yet defiant against the encroaching darkness. The dying are watched vigilantly, each breath noted, each movement acknowledged. Monks chant prayers that echo through stone corridors, their voices resonant and unwavering. Sleep is intermittent, a brief pause in a vigil that never truly ends. The boundaries between waking and dreaming, between living and dying, blur in this environment. Every sound, a cough, a sigh, a shifting body, is meaningful, a part of a larger tapestry of endurance and observation. The living learn to coexist with death intimately. They understand that survival is provisional and that each day may bring loss. The infirmary is a microcosm of the larger world, intensified and concentrated. Every visitor, every patient, every attendant participates in this shared understanding. Fear is not absent, but it is disciplined. Horror is not ignored, but reframed into lessons of endurance. Life is lived with a constant awareness of fragility. And yet, paradoxically, this awareness allows a certain measured courage to flourish. When dawn comes again, pale and hesitant, the infirmary reflects it silently. Beds are rearranged, herbs refreshed, water drawn. Bodies are moved or buried. Those who survive are cared for further, and the rhythm begins anew. Outside, the world continues its indifferent motions. Yet within these walls, life and death have established a fragile coexistence that endures day after day, season after season. The monks, attendants, and patients alike participate in this slow, somber dance, their lives shaped by the unceasing presence of mortality. In this world, death is not dramatic. It is not sudden, shocking, or hidden. It is routine, visible, and inescapable. The monastery infirmary teaches that suffering is natural, that endurance is necessary, and that survival is never guaranteed. Through repetition, observation, and ritual, those who inhabit the space develop a profound understanding of impermanence, a quiet courage, and a reverence for life's fragile persistence. The infirmary is a testament not only to death, but to the strength of those who confront it daily, unflinching, deliberate, and dignified. In the quiet hours before sleep, when the sky outside the timber homes is a deep bruised violet and the last light of day has faded into shadow, the medieval household turns inward. Candles gutter softly, their flames dancing on walls darkened by smoke and age, illuminating scratches and symbols carved by hands long gone. The air is heavy with the scent of burning tallow and dried herbs, lavender, sage, rosemary, mingling with the earthy tang of stone and wood that has absorbed centuries of life, labor, and sorrow. Each room carries the weight of memory. Every corner holds echoes of past laughter, cries, and whispered prayers. Here, superstition is not entertainment. It is architecture, sewn into the rhythm of daily life, shaping thought and action as surely as the beams support the roof. People fear what they cannot see. Night is porous, a living entity that slips through cracks and doors, under thresholds, and into the spaces between bodies. Dreams are dangerous, carrying omens or messages from spirits and demons. The household places iron near cradles, believing that the touch of cold, hard metal will repel invisible beings. Doors are sealed with wax pressed into cracks, prayers murmured over thresholds to prevent intrusion. Charms of bone, feathers, or small pieces of metal hang from walls or beams, each object a talisman protection, a promise that the unseen will be held at bay. The people of this world do not question these measures. To do so will be reckless. Fear is practical, a tool for survival, and vigilance is sacred. Even ordinary illness is suspect. A child falls ill, and whispers circulate. Perhaps the water was poisoned by spirits. Perhaps a neighbor has cursed the household. Perhaps the devil's hand is brushed too closely. Witches are assumed to be real, lurking in shadows, twisting the natural into the unnatural. The sick are not isolated in panic, but treated with ritual as much as medicine. Salves, poultices, prayers, and blessings mingle in equal measure, forming a protective lattice around fragile lives. The line between physical and spiritual danger is nearly invisible, easily crossed by thought, word, or deed. Knowledge and fear coexist, each reinforcing the other, forming a careful web in which daily life can continue without collapse. Animals are observed closely, their behavior read as omens. A black dog that lingers too long outside, maybe more than a dog. Its gaze a warning or a messenger. Cats that refuse to enter a room are signs of unseen threats. Birds that fall silent may signal an approaching misfortune. Every action in this world has potential meaning. Every occurrence is considered in the light of unseen forces. The household moves carefully, shaping its rhythm and gestures around these beliefs, integrating fear into routine so completely that it becomes second nature. Superstition permeates even the most intimate parts of life. Women carry charms sewn into undergarments to ensure safe childbirth. Men may wear amulets while traveling to protect against the envy of neighbors or the wrath of spirits. Meals are prepared with prayers muttered over each pot, each loaf, each ladle of stew. Nothing is left to chance, for chance is dangerous, a gateway for misfortune. Even sleep itself is approached cautiously. Beds are arranged with talismans beneath pillows, thresholds blessed, curtains drawn prevent the intrusion of unseen watchers. Darkness is not merely absence of light. It is a presence to be negotiated, feared, and respected. Execution for heresy or witchcraft is accepted as a practical necessity. Fire cleanses what cannot be reasoned with, words or rituals failing to correct the imbalance caused by evil or misfortune. Screams rise into the sky, but they are not regarded as cruelty. They are tragic, necessary acts, as ordinary as a rainstorm or failing harvest. Faith demands vigilance, and fear accompanies it like a shadow. Communities monitor themselves and each other, speaking softly of misdeeds, marking patterns, recording observations. Accusations may arise quietly. Neighbors become cautious, and the line between suspicion and reality is often blurred. Yet life continues with measured precaution. Children grow up immersed in this web of careful fear. From an early age, they are taught which paths to avoid at dusk, which words not to speak aloud, which glances may draw danger. Play incorporates these lessons subtly. Stepping stones across a stream become a protective ritual. Games of hide-and-seek reinforce awareness of space, shadow, and timing. They are instructed to recognize patterns, to honor warnings, and to respect the unseen, all without panic, so that fear is internalized as a tool for survival rather than a source of terror. The innocence of youth is tempered with ritualized vigilance. Nighttime deepens, and the household settles into a fragile, watchful rhythm. Sleep is a cautious act. The mind cannot fully relax. Dreams may carry messages or threats. Yet even this tension is familiar, shaped by years of ritual observation and preparation. The unseen is always present, but it is respected, constrained, and allowed its place alongside the living. Candles burn low, smoke curling in faint spirals toward the ceiling. Every breath, every movement is measured, deliberate enough to honor both caution and necessity. Even in ordinary daily tasks, fear and superstition interweave seamlessly. Water is drawn carefully. Fire is tended vigilantly. Food is prepared with silent acknowledgement of unseen forces. Neighbors are watched and measured, their gestures noted for meaning. The household navigates the balance between what can be controlled and what cannot. Life is a negotiation with uncertainty, and every act is imbued with symbolic, practical, and protective significance. There is comfort in routine, safety in repetition, and a quiet pride in endurance. The unseen, once acknowledged and accommodated, becomes less threatening, even if never truly absent. As hours pass, the rhythm of household life becomes a chant, a ritual in itself. Each movement, each glance, each gesture reinforces the boundaries drawn against misfortune. Even laughter and conversation follow careful rules, calibrated to avoid offense, insult, or the drawing of unwanted attention. Fear is woven into habit. The extraordinary becomes ordinary, and vigilance is sanctified. The household sleeps in shifts. Some awaken to check doors. Some whisper prayers over children. Some maintain the flicker of candlelight, ensuring that darkness is negotiated rather than surrendered to. Evening and night are punctuated by small ceremonies. Charms are placed or adjusted. Thresholds touched with wax and prayer. Herbs burned to cleanse the air. The rhythm is quiet yet deliberate, a constant affirmation of control over the precarious balance of life. The unseen is given a space alongside the living, acknowledged yet constrained, integrated into daily and nightly routines of survival. Every breath taken, every bed entered, every glance cast towards shadows is shaped by this awareness. Life continues with fear held at bay, ritualized and respected, the unseen a companion rather than a tyrant. Through this careful orchestration, the household survives and thrives, finding a fragile equilibrium. Fear is not denied, but transformed into structure. Superstition is not dismissed, but institutionalized as protection and guidance. Children are trained, adults are disciplined, and the unseen world is accorded its measured place. This is ordinary life in a medieval world that straddles the line between tangible reality and unseen threats. In accepting the unknown, the household achieves a form of mastery, a life conducted in balance, vigilance, and quiet endurance. The night finally deepens fully, and the household sleeps cautiously, wrapped in wool, secure against intrusions and guided by ritual. The candles gutter low, their flames bending toward exhaustion, and smoke curls faintly toward rafters that have borne witness to centuries of life, fear, and endurance. Dreams will be watched and interpreted. Sleep will be measured. Morning will come carrying light, labor, and the renewed cycle of cautious survival. The unseen will remain, acknowledged and respected, a quiet presence beside the bed. Fear is tempered, vigilance is sacred, and life persists in this delicate, ritualized equilibrium. In this world, what modern eyes might call terror is simply order. The household functions through careful negotiation with unseen forces. Every act, every ritual, every prayer creates boundaries that protect the living while acknowledging the power of the unknown. The unseen is allowed its place alongside daily life, breathing quietly beside the hearth, on the bed, through cracks and doors. It is neither enemy nor friend, but a constant companion. And acceptance of its presence is a form of survival, as necessary as bread, water, or fire. Life is woven through vigilance. Fear is ritualized, and the household sleeps lightly, sustained by knowledge, habit, and the quiet mastery of what cannot be seen. The wind carries a bitter chill as it sweeps across the village, rattling shutters and bending the thin, leafless branches of trees, until they scrape against the stone walls like the fingers of the dead. Smoke rises from hearths, curling in thin, silver spirals that catch the dying light, carrying the scent of charred wood, salted meat, and the faintly sweet aroma of herbs burned to ward off pestilence. The streets are narrow, winding between homes built close enough that a shout from one doorway travels easily to the next. Silence dominates, punctuated only by the distant clatter of carts over uneven cobblestones, the low murmur of prayers in the chapel, and the occasional bleat of a goat tethered outside. Yet beneath this veneer of ordinary life, something lingers, a quiet, constant, unacknowledged terror. This is the shadow of the plague. Its presence is invisible but pervasive. The villagers speak in hushed tones, eyes darting to those who cough, who linger too long near others, who appear paler than usual. It is understood, without discussion, that proximity can be fatal. Families retreat to the inner rooms of their homes, doors bolted and fires stoked. Yet isolation is only partially effective. The disease moves silently, unseen, carrying with it fever, delirium, and death. Those who fall ill are removed to small, designated spaces, a loft, a spare room, a distant shed, where they lie, fevered and delirious, under the watch of those brave or desperate enough to care for them. The air in these spaces is heavy, thick with the scent of sickness and herbs crushed in mortars, meant to cleanse and protect. Straw strewn across the floors absorbs the damp, but not the smell of decay. Candles are kept burning day and night, their wax dripping steadily, creating small puddles that harden and crack. Caretakers wear cloth masks, rudimentary shields against the invisible enemy, and carry bundles of rosemary or rue to ward off infection. Prayer mingles with these gestures, whispering the hope that divine protection might supplement the frailty of mortal hands. Faith is both a shield and a balm. It attempts to control the uncontrollable, to bring meaning to the incomprehensible. The sick are rarely alone. A daughter tends to her mother, a husband to his wife, a sibling to a brother or sister. Hands are careful yet compassionate, washing, wiping, feeding, and soothing. The living and the dying share the same space, their breaths mingling, creating a fragile rhythm of care and fear. Fevered eyes, glassy and distant, track movement with difficulty. Voices, faint and tremulous, whisper names, prayers, and reassurances, though strength falters and words dissolve into the humid air. The caretakers endure alongside the sick, their own fears tempered by the necessity of action. Panic is a luxury none can afford. Each motion is calculated, deliberate, and necessary. The bodies of those claimed by the plague are handled with both ritual and expedience. Coins are pressed to closed eyes, mouths tied with strips of linen, and the dead are wrapped quickly in rough linen sheets. Their passage from life to death is swift, leaving little time for mourning before the next person succumbs. Families place simple crosses upon the bodies, prayers whispered over each, and then the corpses are removed to mass graves at the edge of town. Here, earth receives them in silent, unceremonious rows, lime sprinkled over the soil to prevent further spread. The act is both practical and solemn, efficiency tempered by reverence, a recognition of the fragility of life and the inevitability of loss. The villagers adapt to this constant shadow with quiet resignation. Children learn early to avoid the sick, to speak softly to the departed, and to absorb the lessons of endurance without complaint. Play is muted, laughter tempered by knowledge of what awaits those who stray too close to death. Adults move through their routines with care, eyes constantly scanning for signs of illness, hands washed frequently, doors and windows sealed as best as they can. Even the simplest tasks, drawing water from the well, chopping wood, tending animals, are imbued with caution, as if each movement might tip the balance between survival and the unseen threat that stalks the village. Despite the omnipresence of fear, life persists. Bread is baked, fires kept alight, ale poured, and prayers recited. Daily rituals, ordinary and unremarkable in the absence of plague, gain heightened significance. Meals are offered quietly to the sick, chores continued around the houses, and the rhythm of labor, prayer, and vigilance establishes a fragile sense of normalcy. Death is not dramatic. It is continuous, almost natural, flowing alongside the mundane tasks of survival. Villagers do not scream at the arrival of another body. They do not collapse in despair. Instead, they endure, learn, and adapt. Life and death coexist in a constant, intimate proximity. Even the night carries the weight of vigilance. Doors are barred, thresholds blessed with salt and herbs, and candles kept lit to illuminate the corners where shadows might hide danger. Sleep is fragile, measured in intervals, eyes opening at every cough, every creak of timber, every sudden noise outside. Dreams are uneasy, shadows cast long by flickering candlelight. Yet within this tension lies a strange rhythm of life. The living learn to negotiate with fear, integrating it into thought, action, and memory, creating patterns that allow survival even amid constant loss. The plague teaches lessons that are both brutal and intimate. Children observe the care extended to the sick, the rituals surrounding death, and the resilience of the living. Adults understand precariousness of every breath, the fragility of every relationship, and the importance of diligence, faith, and endurance. The community functions not through denial, but through awareness, an unflinching recognition of mortality as a constant companion. Every act of kindness, every whispered prayer, every moment of attentiveness is amplified by necessity, creating a profound intimacy between life and death that permeates every household. Even nature reflects this tense equilibrium. Animals, too, are watched and tended cautiously. The wind is felt as a potential harbinger of misfortune. The frost and rain are acknowledged for the ways they might prolong or diminish disease. The villager's perception of the world becomes more acute, more deliberate. Every sense is heightened by the presence of threat. Every decision measured against the possibility of loss. Superstition, faith, and observation intertwine, creating a landscape in which survival is achieved not by chance, but by vigilance, adaptation, and the quiet fortitude of the living. As days and nights pass, the plague reshapes the rhythms of life entirely. Markets operate with caution, visits between households are curtailed, and every interaction carries the weight of potential consequence. The ordinary is infused with vigilance, the extraordinary with resilience. Communities endure by integrating fear, ritual, and observation into every action. Life becomes an intricate negotiation between survival and the inevitability of death, a delicate dance in which each movement must be deliberate, cautious, and precise. Ultimately, This is the world the villagers inhabit, a world in which death is neither rare nor shocking, but constant, intimate, and acknowledged. Life persists not in ignorance, but through the careful integration of fear and faith, ritual and observation, care and endurance. The plague may claim bodies, but also forges resilience, empathy, and the intimate understanding of mortality. Within the silent, candle-lit rooms, amid the scent of herbs and the shadows of loss, the villagers endure. They continue to live, to pray, to feed, to mourn, and to hope. In this careful, measured existence, life persists, fragile yet unyielding, shaped by the omnipresence of death, yet never wholly defeated by it. Night falls once more, and the village settles beneath its blanket of darkness, the wind whispering through chimneys, trees, and streets. Candles gutter softly, smoke curling in thin trails that catch the faint starlight. The plague sleeps not, but the living do, cautiously, fitfully, and with the knowledge that tomorrow, like every day, will demand the same endurance, vigilance, and quiet courage. Death is near, constant, and intimate, yet life, persistent and fragile, continues its tenuous rhythm in the shadows of mortality.